this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to model this revolver, which we are going to use this reference image, which you can find in the description. Now, this model of revolver is actually the one which was used in Amnesia the bunker, and shout out to this user for giving me the idea. Anyway, let's get into it. Hope you enjoy. When you open your scene, delete the default cube, then add in the reference, and press N to open the side panel and set the Y and Z rotation to 0 and the X to 90 degrees. Then move it back, pressing G, then Y. And in the top right, set your view to be side on to the reference. Add a cylinder to the seam, press R, then Y, then 90 to rotate it 90 degrees along the Y axis. And press Alt Z to go into X-ray mode and scale it to fit the barrel of the gun. And then in edit mode, select the end face, press G and X to move along the X-axis to where the barrel starts going inwards, extrude it with E, and then scale it to where it stops going inwards, press E to extrude to the end of the barrel. To make the sight at the end of the barrel, add 2 loop cuts at either side of the base of the sight, then select the middle 2 top faces and extrude them outwards, and then scale the top face inwards, and then start adding in loop cuts in X-ray mode, dragging the vertices in vertice mode, and just adding loop cuts where necessary to sort of fit the curvature of the sight until you're happy. I just went with 3 horizontal loop cuts and 1 vertical and found that was enough to fit the shape. Press 3 to go to face select mode and select the outer face, then press I to slightly inset it to a suitable size, then press E to extrude it. Make sure you don't go out the back of the barrel as I'm doing. And then once you've done that, press 2 to go to edge select mode, select the outer edge and give it a slight bevel. Then shade your object auto smooth by right clicking. Add in another cylinder and scale it down to fit the parts just below the barrel. Then in edit mode, grab the outer face, G and X to move it along the X-axis to just before the larger part of the shape, and press E to extrude, right click to cancel extrusion, and S to scale it up. Then extrude it to where it stops expanding, and scale up the shape. Then press E to extrude again to the end of the shape, and select the outer face and Control B to bevel, and then shade smooth. For the frame of the gun, you want to add a cube, and then subdivide it. I use Control 2 to subdivide it 2 times, as I feel that this is an appropriate level for the right curvature without using too many faces. And then you want to move it to be next to the barrel and scale it down so that it is only slightly wider than the barrel you've just made. Press Tab to go into edit mode, and then press 1 to go into vertex mode, and drag the vertices to sort of fit the frame as I've done. Make 2 loop cuts with Control R to align with where the gap should be for the gun cylinder, and select the 2 faces I do, and extrude them outwards to the end of the top of the frame. Then make 2 more loop cuts where I do. Select these 2 faces, go to the top and press edge, and press bridge edge loops to join the 2 faces. Then what you want to do is add more loop cuts using Control R and just extrude out faces and just move the vertices to fit the frame of your shape, adding loop cuts where necessary. Make sure that when you do this, all of your faces are still square. For this little bump on the frame, add more edge loops using Control R and use the extra vertices to create a more accurate shape. Carry on making just more adjustments until you're happy that the cube fits the shape. Once you are done, you want to right click and shade it auto smooth, and then since you want the outer faces and the middle faces to be flat, you want to select the outer faces and the middle faces, as I'm doing, making sure any of the faces along the middle, as I'm deselecting, are not selected, and make sure that all of the inner loops faces are selected, and then press Control B and bevel, as I am doing, and you get nice flat faces with slightly rounded edges too, which will give you a nice shape in the end. For this part, the revolver sort of sticking out at the base. It's a similar process. Add a cube, Control 2 to subdivide. Now, what I'd do is I would bring it to the top of the shape, so I find it easier to start modelling from there. And then similar, go into edit mode, start extruding, and add your loop cuts. Use the vertices selection mode to drag it into shape as required. And make sure when you're doing this that you maintain quad faces, otherwise your mesh can end up getting quite messy and you wouldn't want that. Once you're happy with the shape, press 3 to go into face select mode, select the outer faces as before, none of the middle ones, Control B to bevel it, then go out of edit mode, right click and shade it auto smooth. If you want to add the small hole like in the reference, you want to add a cylinder, press RX90 to rotate along the X axis, then you want to scale it down to fit the hole, then you want to press S and Y and scale it on the Y axis so it goes through the whole shape, then add a boolean modifier to the shape, set the mode to difference and set the target object to the cylinder. Then, before applying it, you want to apply the subdivision surface modifier, and then apply the boolean modifier in that order, and then you can delete the cylinder and shade it smooth once again. Next, for the handle of the gun, it's quite easy. You just want to add a cube, Control 2 to subdivide yet again. Then, in edit mode, start dragging the vertices into shape and start extruding more faces, and just continue dragging the vertices into shape until you have the ideal shape. Once you're happy, right click and press Shade Auto Smooth, then scale to fit the gun as you think it suits it, as I am doing. For the trigger guard, you're going to want to add a cube. This time you don't want to subdivide it at all, just scale it down to size and then go into edit mode and vertex mode with 1 and start extruding and move your vertices to just sort of trace the curvature of the shape. And when you start to do the thin curved part, instead of moving your vertices to fit the curvature, just rotate the edge you have recently selected so that you can maintain a constant width, as a changing width for this part might not look very realistic. Once you're done happy, tab to come out of edit mode, right click it and shade it auto smooth. For the trigger itself, you want to use a similar method, just using a cube and extruding and using the vertices select mode to trace the mesh onto the reference trigger. And similarly, when you're doing the thin part of the trigger, press R to rotate your most recent edge instead of dragging the vertices, so that when you're making the shape of the trigger, the width also remains constant. Once you get to the end of the trigger, press Ctrl R to add a loop cut, like this, and then grab the middle edge in edge mode, go into the side view, and press G to grab it, bring it out to make a pointy end to the trigger. Then go back to object mode, right click, shade auto smooth, and your trigger is done. For the cylinder of the gun, you're going to want to add a cylinder, and then go to the menu in the bottom left and set the vertices to exactly 30. Then press RY90 to rotate to 90 degrees, go into X-ray mode with Alt Z, and scale it down to fit your reference. Then you're going to want to go into edit mode, press Ctrl R to add 3 loop cuts according to where the dips in the cylinder start and end according to your reference image. Select the middle face of the dip in the barrel, then select the 2 adjacent faces and the 3 skinnier faces next to it as I've done. To make this process easier, press slash to isolate your object, then leaving 2 faces between each set of 3 faces, select the faces I'm doing, making sure that you leave a gap of 2 faces between each one. And once you're done and you get back to the original face, you should find you have 6 sets of these 3 spaces and each one has a 2 face gap between them. Once you're done selecting faces, press Alt-E, select extrude faces along normals and bring them inside to about the same amount as me. Then select this large face, press X and delete the faces. Then select all of these smaller faces as I am, and again, press X and delete them all. Next, you're going to want to go into object mode, press Ctrl 2, subdivide it, right click, and shade it auto smooth. Go into edit mode, press 3 for face selection mode, press Shift E to add a crease of 1 to that outer face, Then edge select mode with 2, press Alt and left click on this edge loop, press F to fill it. To stop this being all weird, again, Shift D, add a crease of 1 so that the face is nice and flat. Next you want to add a cylinder. Press RY90 to rotate it, scale it down, move it into the barrel cylinder, then press SX to scale it so it goes all the way through. Then you want to press Alt Z to go into X-ray mode, position it so it's roughly in the middle of your cylinder, and scale it to roughly that size. Go into edit mode and press Shift D and move the cylinder into this sort of position. Scale it down a bit so it fits, and then make 5 more duplicates to go around the whole of the gun cylinder, as I am doing. Once you're done, sort of scale up the cylinders, make sure they all go through, then add a boolean modifier to the cylinder, set its difference, set the difference object to the cylinders. First, apply the subdivision, then apply the boolean so you don't get any weird mesh, then delete the cylinders, right click, shade auto smooth, and your gun cylinder is done. For this bit of the frame sticking out next to the cylinder, I'm going to add a cube and subdivide it as before. And I'm going to use the same process to get the sort of shape, scaling it down, extruding, dragging the vertices into shape. You can slightly adjust the shape as needed, but I'm just going to sort of stick to the reference, but please feel free to adjust it to your liking. Once you're done, press S and Y to scale the shape outwards, and then you want to right click it and you want to shade it smooth. Then select the outer faces as before, Control B to bevel to sort of make them rounded and flat. Scale it inwards a bit if it's poking out at all, and then for isolate it with slash, select all of these faces too, as you also would like them to be flat. Control B, now they're nice and flat, and then make any more scale adjustments as needed. I thought it was a bit big, so I just scaled it inwards a bit. The final use is added the screws, so first add a cylinder, RX90, in X-ray mode, scale it down, fit it to size, and then press S, Y, and scale it so it goes through the whole gun. Select the outer 2 faces, Control B to bevel slightly, and then object mode, right click, shade it auto smooth. For the more complex screw, you want to add a cylinder, RX90 to rotate, scale it down to size, then SY to scale it outwards so it goes through the entire gun. Then in edit mode, go to vertex mode, select knife tools, and connect the vertices as according to the reference. And once you are done, you're going to want to press enter to confirm your cuts. Then go back to select mode, add a loop cut with Control R, delete the left faces, press X to delete them, then add a mirror modifier and mirror along the Z axis or whichever axis works as shown. Then select the 2 faces to be extruded, press E to very slightly extrude them, Control B to give them a slight bevel, and then you want to go into object mode after scaling it down to fit, and right click to shade smooth, then press Shift D, move it over to the location of the other screw, press R to rotate, and then SY to scale it inwards. Now you have your finished gun model. Thank you very much for sticking around till the end, and if you enjoyed, consider subscribing. I'll post a lot more Blender content on here, and yeah, thanks a lot. Bye.